Greetings, beloved ones, and welcome to this second class on understanding energies, the process of purification. You know, before I start talking about the principles of purification, I want you to understand that these principles were articulated in ancient times, and in ancient times they were known to only initiates of temples who practiced purification according to certain principles that had been handed down from generation to generation. The priestesses and the priests of temples in Egypt and in other civilizations as well learned what was considered to be esoteric knowledge at that time, and we're talking 12,000 years ago. So you have to hold this in perspective, that we're talking about ancient knowledge that has become more capable of being transmitted today because the concepts that are the foundation of these principles are, relatively speaking, more accessible. That doesn't mean that they're widespread by any means, but they're relatively more accessible, and so I can talk to you about these things and use words that you'll understand. Hopefully. This evening, I want to talk with you about 4 principles of purification. They are the main structures of the process, but they're not the only principles. There are some others that I could articulate also, but in the interest of creating an overview that can be discussed in a short space of time, I'm going to talk about 4 things only. I'll tell you what the 4 are, and then I will go through them one by one. And in our 3rd meeting, we will have more of a chance to break these principles down into the actual issues that come up in their practice. Now, we'll talk some about that tonight, but tonight I want you to understand the concepts, and then we get to the practice and how it works in terms of individual experience. The 4 principles are, first, the 2 that have to do with letting go. There are 2 that have to do with letting go, and there are 2 that have to do with reaching toward. That's a good way to think about it. The first 2 have to do the principle of disidentifying with negative energy. Disidentifying means letting go of it, separating from it. The second has to do with the principle of containment. Containment means that you hold something within yourself, that you don't spill it out. You don't let it out. So this is about letting go of identification with negative energies and letting go of whatever impulse might come up in you to feel free to share the negative energy with the world. Those are the things you let go of. And on the positive, or not positive, on the holding, the reaching toward side, you have the divine connection, the movement towards divine connection, first through the principle of surrender, and second through the principle of alignment. Those 2 are very closely related, but they're not exactly the same. There's some difference. So I want you to see this. On the one side, you have letting go of the identification with negative energies, even if you're feeling them. You don't own them. You don't claim them. You don't say they're you. Then you have containment and not expressing everything that you feel or think. And on the other side, you have reaching towards the divine through surrender of will and agency, and through alignment with light. There you have it in a nutshell. So first I'll talk about the principle of disidentifying with negative energy. Now, I am by no means saying to you that this is simple. I can present it in a simple way, but the process itself is not simple. It requires diligence. It requires attention. It requires commitment. So I'm going to say it to you in a simple way, but it's not simple because it requires a commitment of intention that can manifest something that has not been part of our normal, habitual way of relating to the world. As I said to you, purification and the principles were taught in the temples because they weren't considered to be something that the world could use. They were taught to those who were committed to the level of self-awareness and self-investigation, which were the temple initiates, that could absorb them. But we are here 12,000 years later. All right, the first one, disidentifying with negative energies. How do you know an energy or an emotion or a thought that is passing through your mind or your body or your consciousness is not you? The answer is you don't always know. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't know. Does it matter? In a way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because what that distinction is based on is knowing where the energy comes from. And so we get caught up in this issue of is it me or is it not me? Because we're thinking, is it coming from inside of me, this negative thought, this negative feeling, or if I acquired it from someplace else or somebody else or something? We have a habit of looking for causality. What's causing it? And then we think we know what to do about it if we know what's causing it. But that is not true, beloved ones. That's a mental habit that you need to know the cause of something in order to deal with it. You don't. What you need is to know that the real you, the core you, the you that you want to find, is not that negative energy. So the disidentification has to take place whether you know the cause of it or not, whether it comes from outside or it comes from inside, whether it's related to a person or a box of Kleenex or a room or the air you're breathing, it doesn't matter. What matters is you say to yourself, I am not that. I am not that. Meaning your core self, the you that you believe is the truthful you, the you that is basic, is not that. Now why is that so hard? Because, beloveds, we don't have that experience enough to say, I am not that negative thing. I am not that negative emotion. Mostly we have a lot of experience having a lot of negative thoughts, emotions, sensations pass through us. So in some way, we feel that feeling negatively is more real than saying it's not me. And that's because we don't have, to that extent, the same experience of our real self. If we did, if we had an experience of our real self, this would not be a problem. And if you go up in the hierarchy of awareness, of light, if you go up in the hierarchy of awareness of light, then because the truth of the self is more connected to the divine source, you don't have this problem because you know if something comes into you or you feel it, it's not you because you know who you are. So the problem of disidentifying with negative energies is you are used to thinking that that's who you are. And if you are holding on to that definition, nothing can change. If you think that's who you are, you can't separate. It's just you. You have to put up with yourself. And that has all kinds of consequences too. Putting up with yourself. It leads to depression. It leads to hopelessness. It leads to confusion, not knowing what to do. But the simplicity of what I'm saying is, what you have acquired in history, whether it's this lifetime or another lifetime, what you've acquired that's caused painful feelings, judgmental feelings, hateful feelings, angry feelings, blaming feelings, feelings of failure, all of that is not the real you. You think it is, and it's not. So this is step one of letting go. Can you let go of the belief that that is you, and believe that there's a truer version of who you are that you are? This is not yes or no, this answer to my question. It's not, yes, I can let go, no, I can't let go. No, it's a process. The process is one of learning to let go, of learning through practice, of letting go of the identification. And you do need to practice it, and you do need to catch yourself believing that you are that. If you don't practice it, then you stay at the same place of believing that you are the negative energies, and there you are until some experiences in life or some divine experience convinces you that you are not that. You have an experience more of your own goodness, beauty, purity, love, etc. Eventually that happens. So that's the hardship. The hardship is not so much seeing what you're feeling or knowing that a difficult emotion or energy, it could be anything, it could be an emotion, it could be a thought, it could be a physical sensation. Whatever it is, it's not that you this difficulty knowing it's there. The difficulty is separating from it as yourself. The second principle of containment goes along with the first. Once you know that something is passing through you that is not what you want to feel, not what you think is of the light, not what you would like to be, and it has that connotation that we call negative emotion. I know that there are people who don't use the word negative about any emotion, but that's not the case in relation to what I'm saying. Negative here is that which is not conforming to the soul. Negative means that which takes you away from the truth of your deeper self. So that's what I'm meaning by negative. It doesn't mean you shouldn't acknowledge feelings or you should feel ashamed of yourself. It's not like that. It means that the feelings that are the true feelings are the ones that come from your deeper self or soul, and the process of purification is an aspirational process to become that. It's not to stay in the earlier definition of what human is. That's past. We all have a history of thinking, what does being human means? Well, it means feeling such and such and such and such. That's not where we are with purification. We're aspiring to redefine what is the range of feeling that a human being wants to have as true to their deeper self. So we're changing the frame of reference to something else. That movement towards the divine self or the deeper self or the soul self, that is key. It's key to the process of purification. Purification is a spiritual transformational process. It doesn't leave your definition of human where it was. It takes you someplace else. And of course, if you don't want to go there, then you wouldn't be engaged in this process, because its intent is to take you there, to the level of your soul. So back to the principle of containment. Here, there are several converging threads that are important to understand. First, that saying something out loud, telling somebody something about how bad you feel, acting out anger, acting out anything. It could be anger, it could be fear. You can act out of fear, you can act out of anger, you can act out of depression. Acting it out may make you feel better in the moment because it feels consistent with what you're feeling inside, but it's not better. Acting out something is that is in the category of these energies that I'm talking about, no matter where they're coming from. Doesn't matter what the source is. Acting it out creates a feedback loop. A feedback loop means that what you give power to through expression has an energy because you've expressed it, apart from whatever its quality is. If I express anger, there's the energy of anger, but I'm also using my voice, my body, to express it. So the sounds that I'm making, the gestures that I'm making, are incrementally adding energy to what was present beforehand. It's not just that the anger, I'm just using this as an example, has an energy or a potency. It's that when you express it, you increase the force of it by expressing it. And that's because of the power of sound. That's because of the potency of words that you give voice to increases the energetic component. So there's another reason not to contain something rather than to act it out. And I mentioned just now a feedback loop. When you act out something, it goes back into you because the energy's out there and you reabsorb it. It doesn't change. You just put it outside and it comes back inside. Another aspect of this is that when you are with somebody else and the energy is expressed, then that person takes it in from you, and then you have another feedback loop, namely the interactive feedback loop. That means that you have expressed something negatively, it becomes part of somebody else's energy body, and then they transmit it back into you. So it's another feedback loop. So those are two reasons for containment, but the most important reason is the third reason. The most important reason is that what you act out, you are not giving to the divine. You are doing what involves human will or human habit. You are doing what comes naturally to you, but you are not engaging with the divine as a resource. You are not turning towards the divine. So you could say, if you go in this direction of expressing your human self as we have defined it, remember we're changing the definition, but you go in the direction of expressing your human self, then that part of you is not addressing the divine, because purification is entirely about a partnership between the human and the divine. So if you go in that other direction, you're not fully engaging with the process. You may be engaging with it some, but you're not holding in what belongs to the divine interaction. So that's the main reason for containment, because you want to hold whatever it is you want to transform and purify. You want to hold it in yourself and give it to the divine to transform. This, of all the four principles, is the key to all four. That the process in all four principles is a human-divine interaction. It's never not that. And if it looks like it's not that, it's because some part of you has moved to one side in an unbalanced way, so that you are feeling, well, and this is what people say, I'm only human, this is what I feel, I'm only human. That's not involvement with the purification process, if that's your bottom line. That's okay as a transitional statement, but it leaves out giving it to the divine and working towards that reaching that I said are principle number 3 and principle number 4. So you can't just do that. You can't just say and be in this process with the idea of transformation to say, I'm only human, this is what I do. So containment means that you hold something back. You don't let it consume you. You don't let it take over. Because you don't want to be engaged in the feedback loops that I mentioned, and because you want to have it be a divine partnership, a divine interaction. And now that's the central thing, because the process itself is based on the action of light. The process itself is based on the intentionality and reality of your human psyche, body, and experience to interact with divine light. Divine light being the energy source, which is the agent of transformation. Divine love, divine light, the two are the same in the higher levels. We use two different words, but they're the same. So that interaction is the core of the purification process. What does that mean? To be the core. It means that there has to be a certain degree of trust, that's a reality, that you can turn over your feelings to the divine. There has to be that trust. There has to have been developed a certain degree of reality that you are capable of having a personal, embodied relationship with the divine. Does everybody believe that? Not yet. Not yet. Many spiritual traditions, not all, but many, still are picturing the divine-human interaction as based primarily in transcendence. Transcendence means that you know that the divine is real, but it's not interacting with you on an individual level. It's more on an other dimensional level. It's transcendent. This process of purification presumes that every human being, every human being is capable of having a direct personal experience of the divine. It assumes that as a premise. So if your belief is that you don't, or you can't have a direct personal experience of the divine, then it's harder. It's not impossible, but it's harder to turn towards the divine. As you contain energies, you have to give them to something that you don't know what you're giving it to. You can still do that because belief is important, whether you have had a direct experience or not. You can still intend to give these feelings, these energies to the divine. But at the end of the other end of the spectrum, if there's not enough trust to even think that it's possible for there to be communication, well, then it's really a matter of not being ready to engage in this process, because the communication with the divine is central. Just the communication. I have moved into principle number 3, the principle of surrender, just by virtue of the expression that I used, saying you hold something back and you give it to the divine. That is the surrender. In other words, you give up a certain degree of agency over what's going to fix the energy, what's going to change it. It's not that you become indifferent or passive, that's not necessary. But in terms of what you're looking inside yourself for, in order to heal the situation, you're looking for divine light to heal the situation. You're reaching towards divine light. And so in order to do that, you have to surrender agency, because agency, meaning your own will to do something else, well, agency is what human beings have done. We have a bad feeling, so we act it out, get angry, have a fight, drink, get involved with other kinds of illicit behavior, use substances, all kinds of things. That would be acting it out and not surrendering it to the divine interaction. That doesn't mean the person isn't underneath looking for the divine, but this is a conscious process, this process of purification. This is a person's decision to transform themselves that underlies this. So the surrender to the divine means I turn over my feelings to you, whoever you are, by the name of the divine. I assume that if I place these energies in the place of surrender, not by my doing something about them, but by my trusting that I can invoke a response from the universe, from the all, from the oneness, from the Holy One. That's the surrender, but you have to give up the doing of something else, which creates doubt and mistrust about that, because trusting that there is a divine human interaction is key. It's important. And the asking for healing is part of the surrender, giving up agency, asking for healing, and then attuning to the presence of light. That's principle number 4. So you're surrendering agency to take the matter out of God's hands, let's say, put it in your own hands. And again, I want to qualify this by saying that doesn't mean you have to sit in a chair and do nothing, but it means that you are giving yourself as fully as you can to the divine human interaction to ask for healing, through prayer, through meditation, through trust. Principle number 4 is alignment with light. Alignment with light is not the same thing as surrender. Surrender means that you are trusting that there is a divine capacity to heal you. There is a divine action that can heal you. Alignment with light means that you will do whatever is in your consciousness and in your power to do, so that your body, mind, and emotions can be infused by light. And that is a whole path in itself, alignment with light, because it means that if you can take in more light into your daily life, into your thought process, into your body, through any means that you can think of, through how you move through the day, through being in nature, through your diet, through the books you read, through prayer, through whatever you do to uplift your thought, that alignment with light brings your body into a more receptive vibration so that you can receive light from the higher planes more, and that can transform the negative energies. It's the receiving of the light from the higher planes of being that is the transformative agent. So if you do your part and you align with light in whatever ways, as I said, some people feel that through being on the earth, or in the earth, or with the earth. Some people feel that through prayer and meditation, and being with others who are carrying a higher vibration of light also is a way of aligning with light. But the main thing is to reach out to the divine light in whatever way that feels real to you, and to do it deliberately and to do it with intentionality, because that's what opens the door to the joining of dimensions, so that the transformative agent of light can affect your body, which affects your emotions, which releases the negative energies. If you don't do anything related to aligning with light, you can still do some of the rest of what I'm talking about, but the process is more limited, because the potency of light is the agent that transforms the negative energies. It's a higher level energy transforming a lower level energy. That's the way it works. This divine human interaction belongs to every human being. But the consciousness that it's possible has to arrive. If it hasn't arrived, then it's not real to you. You who are listening to me perhaps have a commitment and an understanding of what purification is, of what transforming emotions is, of what reaching out to the divine is. But your next door neighbor, your partner, your family, your friends, they may have no sense that this is real. They may hear the words you use, but it wouldn't register as real because the consciousness is not ready to receive it as real. And so you have to accept that too, that people are in their own path and their own state of evolution, and eventually all paths lead to this, because this process of purification doesn't belong to any particular spiritual focus, religion, path, orientation. It doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to everybody. Every person who progresses a distance on a spiritual path is going to come to a place where they leave behind their formerly defined human self and transform that human self into something that represents and embodies the divine. Every spiritual path will take you there eventually. So purification will become and is part of every spiritual path in the more advanced levels of self-awareness, because it's a necessity. You can call it by different names, but it's a necessity. And so every path takes you through it. Those who are on the earth today have come here in part to participate in the purification of themselves and the purification of the planet. Both. Individual selves are going through this process, some more consciously, some less consciously. The planetary body is going through this process physically, energetically. The entire earth is going through this process, the physical, energetic body of the earth. So you came here, beloveds, to do this, and you are in the midst of deciding whether you will be consciously able, willing, desiring to be involved in this, and to what degree. It's not yes or no. There are degrees involved in this. But the fundamental premise is that the process of purification is a divine process that leads to transformation for individuals and for the entire planet. It's a divine process initiated by the divine, activated by light, in which human beings take part because they trust it, they believe in it, and they want to transform their own consciousness to be of greater service to the world. So it corresponds to a certain step in your own development, in your own sense of who you are and what you want to become. All the beings who went before us, the ancient ones, are part of us now. We are part of them in the past, because all who embark upon this path are one. All who are holding these ideas are one. We are part of the same movement towards God, towards the divine, past and present. It's the same. So I want you, I hope, to feel aligned with human history and human evolution, which is moving all beings in this direction. All beings will go in this direction because it's part of the evolutionary unfoldment of what's inside. It will eventually happen. May you have the trust in the process as it pertains to yourself, the trust that you have chosen to be here in it, that you're capable of pursuing this if you choose to. And there's a choice, and then there's feeling capable. So feeling capable of it is important. And that the divine is in partnership with you with you in your engagement with your desire to transform. The divine is with you, holding the possibility of transmitting light and that which is going to help you change what needs to be changed, to elevate your own sense of who you are. May this be your awareness, beloved ones, that the human and divine partnership that is represented in the process of purification is part of the way that human beings are meant to live upon the earth. May all beings be blessed with this knowledge of unity. Om Namo Bhagavate, Om Namo Namaha. I bow to the Supreme Being that lives within all. Namaskar.